This is very important. Very, very important. All right. Okay, so on the first slide of your presentation, it's got to have your name, the date, the name of the assignment. In this case, it's called the 3.4 first draft, right? Also want to see the exact time. In other words, the duration of your presentation, not the number of slides, but I need to know exactly how long it is. Because if hopefully you read the instructions already, but just as a reminder, this presentation's got to be 3 to 4 minutes long. In other words, no less than 3 minutes and no more than 4 minutes. Also, at the end of your presentation, perhaps on the very last slide, I need to see some kind of a slide for your sources, for the images. Each image that you found, I need to see the original link from where that was found, right? So I don't want to see on your sources page, I don't want to see just, okay, I found all my images on Google and that's it. No, I don't want to see that. I need to see at the very least the original link. So what some people do is they will list it out. Slide 1, here's the link for the image on that. Slide 2, here's the link for the image on that. Right? Okay. So I mentioned this last week as far as what is your big idea. Yeah, it's a pitch. So this is really important as far as what to consider. It's not about presenting a crazy new idea about flying shoes, or this pitch has to be directly related to your degree program, right? So it's about convincing your audience about why they should listen. So that is why we emphasize talking and highlighting your specific professional qualifications. Yeah, yeah. Highlight your qualifications, which is why we encourage you to talk about your courses. More on that in a bit. So the big thing here is, what should I talk about in this pitch? Well, since it's a pitch, right? It's a pitch. Everything you say, everything you show should serve one purpose. It's got to help your pitch. It has to help your pitch. So be thinking about that. When you're writing out your script, be thinking, okay, is this going to help is this going to help my chances of getting into this company? Your past is your past. And whatever you did in your past is totally your business. But whether you want to discuss something that happened in your past, that's up to you. But again, think about, like, in terms of, is it going to help my chances of working for Bethesda if I mention that time that I broke into my neighbor's house and raided their refrigerator? I personally, I might consider leaving that tad piece of information out of my pitch, but that's what I'm saying. Everything you say, you have to consider, is this going to help me? Is this going to help my chances of, getting this gig, right? Very important. Throwing shots. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So yeah, be specific in your pitch. Don't talk about what you want to do, but rather what you can do, right? If you start writing out your pitch and you see that you have the terms I want, I need, I want this, I want that, you might have to rephrase it. So in any kind of interview, it's better to kind of use an inclusive, a kind of team phrasing. It sounds a lot better than if you were to term everything like I want this, I want that, I want an office with an oceanside view. They don't tend to love that idea. So yeah, don't talk about what you want to do. Talk about what you can do. Do mention your specific professional qualifications. Any kind of previous relevant work experiences, throw that in there. If If you were a manager at a store, or you worked in a previous job where you solved a major issue, you really saved the day or you helped the customer out and they were totally, totally happy. They were like, just raving about your customer service skills, whatever. Military experience, you better talk about that. You need to talk about that. So anything like that that is going to, shed some light on your passion, on your work ethic. Yeah. So mention a handful of industry specific courses. Now, I saw in a lot of your plans, you did this pretty well, but in some instances, I saw some courses like English composition, or I don't remember the names of them, but my point is this. For if you are pitching to a video game company, or some kind of world-renowned recording studio, what courses do you think the interviewer is going to want to hear about? You know, Probably not English comp. They're going to want to know that you are proficient in digital audio workstations, that you have completed courses in mixing and mastering, right? That you know your music. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Whatever courses you talk about, they really should be the courses that this interview, this particular situation, is going to help you out. Oh, please, please. This is kind of important. Yeah. Yeah, don't do that. Don't. You might have fresh ideas, but come on. Let can we all admit that this is a pretty cliche, we've often heard this expression. He's got fresh ideas. They have fresh ideas. We all have fresh ideas. If it's better, instead of throwing out, it's totally overused. It's one of those resume catchphrases, right? So whenever you are tempted to use a resume catchphrase, instead give them a specific example, right? Give them a taste. You don't have to give them the whole idea per se, but give them an idea, a specific, or a story, yeah? And fresh ideas, or you should hire me because I'm young and I got fresh ideas. Well, maybe they don't want somebody that's young. Right? Maybe most often they just want somebody that knows what they're doing. They want experience, right? Everybody hear me okay? Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right. Yay. And script. I think we discovered from last week's 2.3 emotional recording, emotional storytelling assignment, that a script helps. A script certainly helps. It kind of like calms our nerves. It gets us to focus on the key points in our presentation. And this is one of the central reasons behind a script. You want to make sure that you say what you need to say. So a script is key. And what's even more important is rehearsing that script. You don't have to. No one's suggesting to memorize it at all, but you should be so comfortable with it that I think we talked about this last week. But like, if I asked you to read it to me over the phone, I wouldn't even know. I shouldn't even know that you're reading me your script. That's how comfortable you should be with your script, right? So know your script, but yeah, don't sound like you're reading. Don't ever try to sound like you're. It's going to come off sounding very unnatural, very robotic, and you don't want to sound like that. You don't want to sound monotone. You want to sound almost conversational, right? Um, 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 um. It can be. You know what, Tiffany? Presentations in general are nerve wracking. No matter how you cut it, it is true. It is true, and I totally understand that. I totally do. Right, but the key thing is, um, I think if you don't write one out, it's even worse. It is even worse. There's much more room for error because you could start improvising if you don't have a script. You can forget to mention something really important. You might fall under the minimum time requirement, or you might go over. Which, yeah, all of those factors lead to point deduction, which is kind of a bummer, right? So, speaking of slides, how many should I have? How many should I have? I would say 12. At least. Let me throw in the term at least. I love at least because um, whenever I say at least, hopefully you're thinking, okay, I got to do more. Whenever a director tells me, hey, I need at least a minute of music here, I always give them more. I always give them at least 2 minutes. And it's up to them to do, with what they want with the rest. So I say at least 12 slides, not counting your title page. Your title page is just going to contain your name and the date. So yeah, everything else, I'd say at least 12. All right. Another really, really important thing, and let me preface this with a question. Have you ever been exposed to a presentation? Have you ever sat through a presentation where the presenter is standing at the podium or in front of the screen, and they're not even holding the little clicker button, but they're just saying, okay, I'll give you an example. Hi, my name's Eddie Tapia. I'm here to talk to you about photosynthesis. Next slide, please. Photosynthesis is a process when blah, 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 blah. Next slide, please. You know what I'm saying? So that happens when you don't set the presentation to run automatically. It kind of kills the flow if you're making the viewer change the slide. No, what you want to do instead is you want to set the presentation to run automatically so everything plays automatically, the audio flows automatically, the images flow automatically. Sorry. Now, this little feature, most presentation programs have this. I don't know of one that doesn't. And it's usually something in every presentation. It's in a different location, but it's really easy to find. It's usually in the control panel, and it'll just say something like "set presentation to run automatically," or it might be worded a little different than that. But the idea is you want to be in control of the presentation. You want to. You never want your audience to be in the control or the viewer to be in control. So, in other words, when you send me your presentation, the only thing I should have to do is click open, play, sit back, and watch your presentation. That's it. You don't want the viewer to ever have to, click for sound, click for slide transition, click for next slide. No, maybe you had like really awesome phrasing, but guess what? That's going to kill the flow of your presentation. Okay. Every presentation I've seen was like that. Wow, that stinks. Yeah, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it at all. Anywho, all right, you get the idea. Okay. And again, this is another one of another one of Eddie's, no-brainer tips. Before you submit, play it back, watch, listen, time, have someone else watch it. That's really, really helpful. This is, again, I know it's no-brainer stuff, but when you've worked on a presentation for hours, all you want to do is turn it in. Yeah, come on, admit it. I know, I've been there, but it's really worth it to just play it back for a third or fourth or fifth time, and even have someone else watch it. Because I've found that if I'm working on something for too long, I will miss the obvious. There might be some spelling issue, or I might not have heard some sample that's coming out too loud. Maybe my ear got used to it. But then when I play it for someone, they'll be like, "Oh, did you know that French horn was really loud?" Like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I knew I wanted to change something about that." Um, Anywho, so yeah, please, please, please play it back. Play it back. This is it's one of those things that it's the editing process. Whenever you're creating anything, whether it's a story, a film, a song, it's all a part of the editing process. It's never like, okay, I wrote something, it's awesome, I'm done. Nope, that's not how it works. Let me see. I'm sorry, I'm just reading some of these comments. Osvaldo said, I would agree. While writing your script, you should have your slides, which your conversation focus on there for the building phrase. It really it depends on on your workflow. Some people like to record their audio first. Excuse me. Some people like to pick their images first. So it works differently for everyone. All right. Oh, one of my favorite presentation no-nos. No bullet points. Bullet points were the rage, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even. Now, this is one of the whole concepts behind Nancy Duarte's teachings, her concepts in Slideology and Resonate, that in order to create an engaging, a creative presentation, that's just it. You have to be creative. And there's nothing creative with bullet points. There's a far more engaging way to connect with your audience, and that's through the use of visuals, powerful visuals. So instead of just like littering your slides with bullet points, think instead about finding a really powerful image. That is going to get your audience's attention much, much more than bullet points. So we shouldn't see any bullet points on your slides, right? Get rid of them. They stink. They're terrible. So pop quiz, should you have bullet points in your presentation? Landon got it. Elmer, exactly. Maureen, yes. Yes, well done. Well done. You nailed the pop quiz. Sorry, I said yes, but I meant no. You know what I mean. So, yeah, no, 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 and no bullet points. Please, please get rid of them. This is not how you make a creative presentation. The other thing we used to see a lot of, and I think it's safe to say that you may have seen your share of presentations that did this, where you see a slide and the entire slide will just be a wall of words. Anybody? Just a huge chunk of words, a huge chunk of text on one slide. It's terrible. You never want to do that. So as far as text, as far as words go for a presentation, less is more. Less is more. What you want to do instead, oh yeah, this is bad. This is just bad. What does this do? This is like total visual vertigo, yeah? Visual chaos. And usually when you see it slide like this, what tends to happen? What does the presenter do? They will read it word for word. Like the audience is, just comprised of a bunch of idiots, and it makes you feel dumb. you're like thinking, oh, why is the presenter reading this word for word? So instead, less is more. I know, right, Taylor? It can produce a mild headache. It's just too much. It's too much to look at. So instead of something like that, you want to have short key phrases or a quote. Quotes are cool, right? Quotes, they tend to make you think, regardless of whether you agree with the quote or not. They usually make you scratch your head and think, I like that. I'm going to use that on my screensaver. But quotes are great. I will caution you though, if you plan on using quotes in your presentation, don't go quote crazy. Because for example, if you have a 13 slide presentation and 12 slides have different quotes, what'll happen? Well, your audience will forget probably the first, second, third, fourth quote that you showed them. Even if they were like the best quotes in the world, the most inspiring, they'll forget it. By the time the presentation is over, they will forget. So I would say 1 or 2 quotes maximum are fine. Yeah, does that make sense? So yeah, instead of just having a ton of words, a wall of words on your slides, keep it short. Maybe a couple of powerful words, short key phrases, or a quote. A quote or two would be fine. Yeah. So look what I did here. Here's a perfect example. I like this. This is so I found an interesting image on the internets, the interweb, and what I did here is kind of along the lines of what you should be thinking about if you're utilizing a quote. So now notice the color of the font, the placing of the font. You know, formatting is key as well. But I just opposed, excuse me, I did a matching between the quote and the image itself. So this is along the lines of what you should be striving for. Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place. See what I'm saying? White text with black outlines all the way. Yeah, it works. It works. That's another thing that you really have to think about. You know, the size of your font, the color of your font. Can you read it? Can you read the font? You know, it might look cool. You might think, hey, red font would look really cool, but depending on the color of the background, it may not. So something to think about. Something to think about. All right. So anybody know where this quote is from? Don't try to Google it. It's from Avatar. The animated series, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, the live action never happened. Yeah, this is a great Uncle Iroh quote. I could actually say this quote in his voice, you know, but I'm not going to because I do horrible impersonations. Sometimes life is sorry. I know I see it's terrible, right? Oh God, I'm just such a terrible nerd. Moving right along. Anywho, I did hear about that, Taylor. I'm nervous. I'm nervous for the live action one. I'm kind of a purist with things. All right. So the idea is always use a powerful image. When you're picking images, excuse me, be thinking, is this image gonna stand out in my audience's mind? Is it going to be something that they're going to forget about in 5 seconds, right? Always use a powerful image as your background, like this, kind of like this, right? Okay. All right. So, yeah, your presentation, I mentioned this earlier, but just to reinforce this very important point, your presentation's got to have a slide for your sources, for your images, yeah? Okay, so don't write Google Images or images found on Pixabay. That doesn't tell me anything. You know, you could have a really cool image in there, and you know, chances are I'm going to want to know who did it. I'm going to want to know where I can see more of that artist's work. Yeah. It really depends, Landon. Does the source slide count in the 12? I would say no. You know, that's just kind of like a blank document. Not blank, but it's more an informational document. So I would say no. All right, so let's move right along. So yeah, at the very least, I want to see the original link where you found that image. Now, anybody on game art or graphic design, game development, anybody? Computer animation? Okay, cool. Now, I've been asked whether you can submit, you can submit some of your own work because yeah, you know, this is kind of a pitch, right? So you might want to like be looking as kind of like a portfolio, showing the gaming company what you can do, showing them some of your drawings. That is totally fine, totally fine. Very cool idea if you do that. If you do that, make sure you give yourself credit. So like say maybe on slide 3 you have an original drawing of a knight that you created, you drew it, right? So just maybe at the bottom of the slide include some information. You know, something like the title of the image, knight drawing by Asfalto Aponte, 2008. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Something like that. It's important because when your audience is watching the presentation, there should be no question in their mind who did that drawing. Does that make sense? And then also include that information on the sources page, right? Like, okay, at the sources page, slide 3, original drawing, Night by Eddie Tapie, whatever, Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Cool. Same thing as if you want to include some original music in there. We're going to talk about background music in just a bit. But my point is this: always, always, always give yourself credit. Give yourself credit. All right, so images. Let's talk about images some more. So yeah, whether you're a graphic designer, if you're a game designer, web designer, any music production, regardless of what degree you are in, your presentation should reflect your creativity. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, if you're a graphic designer or you're in game art, yeah, just really, really push the creative envelope, right? What you don't want to see, or sorry, what you don't want to say is I'm a creative artist, and then your presentation is nothing but like bullet points and clip art, right? So yeah, it's got to be really. I'm giving you permission to choose vibrant, powerful images that are gonna really help connect your relationship with the audience. Hating on that clip art again. I know I can't help myself. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't really do anything. So as far as images go, you want to be thinking powerful, evocative, but just to clarify, when I say evocative, I don't mean provocative. Big difference. Big difference. Yeah, and be thinking story. Remember in week 1, in our first go-to training session, the exercise that we had, where I showed you a couple of images with the same quote. Remember the image of the boy, the children under that freeway, and they were having a classroom session, right? Something like that. One of the reasons why that was such a powerful image was the story behind it. Be looking for those kind of images, the kind of image that when you look at it, it tells a story. Even if you don't know the story, it just has a story in there. Because chances are that's the kind of image that's going to, remain in the mind of your audience. And of course, you want to be picking high quality images, nothing blurred, nothing pixelated, right? All right. So yeah, keep it professional, please. Please. Treat it kind of, because in many ways, this is a bit like a job interview or a video resume, if you will. So yeah, I say keep it professional, but at the same time, you don't want your presentation to look like an HR booklet. You know what I mean by that? They okay, people dressed in suits, right? With they're all shaking hands, they all look perfect, hair perfect. They might be sitting around a conference table with a fake smile, right? I know you guys have seen these images before. Right? They're just a little generic. They feel fake, right? They're not really. There's no emotion behind them, right? So that's what I mean by that. So you don't want to have that kind of look, that kind of tone. And what I like to recommend is one image per slide. One image per slide. Yes, exactly, Jose. Not bland, right? So one image per slide, a bit like this. Now, let me talk a little bit about image formatting. Notice how I formatted this image. Notice that I filled up the entire slide with this image. There's no background showing, it's not off-centered. It's not kind of like, misplaced to the right or just to the left or to the corner. It fills up the entire image. Now, the reason why this works is because it maximizes the impact of the image. That's what you want to do. No pun intended, but also look at the font, look at the text. I don't have a lot of text here, right? But the words I do have, they're purposeful, they're meaningful. You know, the word content, it's in bold. It's got a nice pop of orange to it. How to make an impact is easy to read, you know, stands out. So this is along the lines of what you need to do. Not like this. This is what we call the collage effect. In a 3 to 4 minute presentation, folks, you know, you could have, well, first of all, you guys, a collage is just when you cram a bunch of images into one image like this. You can, even if you have like 8 of the most phenomenal images ever created, if you got a short presentation, you know, chances are they're not going to be able to fully appreciate each image. Again, you want to avoid visual vertigo because, again, it's too much for the audience to look at. It's too much for the eye to look at. It's only good for making memes. Jessica said, I like to frame images slightly with other images. Sometimes is that okay? It depends. I would keep it to, you know, just a few. Like if you I would say 2 at the max because otherwise it becomes too much. Like if you really want to showcase your original work, why would you cram 6 pieces of your artwork on one slide? We won't be able to really look at it and really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's gonna come back to like when you are playing it back to yourself when you're watching the presentation, really kind of pay attention to, okay, is is my art getting the attention it demands? Or is this presentation moving a little bit too fast for me to include 4 images on the slide? Right? Okay, cool. All right. All right, let's talk about default templates, whatever. So, I would avoid using them. Now, whenever you use PowerPoint or Keynote or any any presentation program, whenever you open up a program like this for the first time, this is what you'll see. This is the PowerPoint. And so what templates are all of these things. They're templates. They're generic templates. They're just there to kind of like, you know, hey, you need something really quick? Use this one. Here's the Keynote list, options for the templates. The reason why I say avoid using them is because they're overused, right? And you want every original edge that you can get your hands on, right? So the more customized you can make your presentation, the better. Make sense? All right. Cool. So yeah, um, be on the lookout for high quality images all the time. And these are just a couple of places where you can find create images, royalty free images, Creative Commons, and archive.org. I know Pexels is another one. There's a ton of places, I will caution you when you do a search for images with certain keywords. I think we talked about this, but like this is kind of, and it happens a lot. It boils down to making your presentation original. You don't want your presentation to look like somebody else's presentation. You don't want your presentation to have the same images, right? So like if you were to go to Google right now and you type the word imagination, one of the first images that will pop up is SpongeBob. No lie. No lie. Same thing with creative and success. You will see the same images pop up. So my point is that, you know, be careful not to pick the first image that pops up. Always choose the best one. The best one, the most powerful one. Yes, that's the one, Landon. The SpongeBob rainbow one. It's funny, but yeah. Um, and this takes time. It takes time to find the best one. That's why you don't wanna wait until the weekend to begin this sucker. All right, let's talk about clip art. We're not going to do clip art, right? Nobody, and I mean nobody, shall implement the evil clip art into their presentation. Let's just agree right now, okay? What is clip art, Eddie? Well, I shall demonstrate. This, my friends, is clip art. Steven's like, there goes my idea. This is a perfect example of clip art, and it used to be the rage. And what, 15 years ago? And clip art is just kind of like, it's generic, quirky art specifically made for mass consumer use. So it's like, it's perfect if you're making a coupon book, for you're selling, I don't know, light bulbs or whatever. Then it's fine. But yeah, they're generic. Here's another one. Here's a beauty. Which air conditioning company should I choose? Right? Yeah, this is clip art. We don't want this. Oh, this is a beauty. This is a lovely clip art. Please, just don't. Just don't. Um, I know, right? There was a time. That time is over, thankfully. The thing is, and that's one of the brilliant concepts behind Nancy Duarte's approach to presenting. Um, her whole idea is be creative, use emotion, use color to move your audience. Not it's not by using generic art like this. Ah, yes, please. The emojis, no, no, thank you, and no, thank you. Right? This is bad. This is bad. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, you don't want to be tacky. It's kind of like, what does Eddie mean by tacky? When you're in an interview, I'm pretty sure most everyone in here has been in an interview at one point in their life. It's a given that you're there in that interview to make money, right? That's a given. You don't have to say it. You don't have to tell the company that because they're hiring you, they're going to profit, right? So when I say don't be tacky, you don't want to include slides like this, right? Or just stacks of gold. That's kind of tacky. I call me crazy. Um, yeah, it's because, like I said, it's a given. They know you're there for a job, right? I lost everybody, didn't I? Okay, thank you. Thank goodness. For a minute, I thought everybody was just completely and utterly disappointed. Like, no, I wanted to use a slide like this. Anywho, okay, so yeah, this is being tacky. Oh, memes. Oh my, no memes, please. I know everybody is just like, I heard it. I actually heard it. I heard everybody sigh and gasp. Even though the audio was on mute, I heard everybody gasp with disappointment. Here's why, folks. The meme life expectancy is, you know what the meme life expectancy is? It's like yesterday. No, sorry, it's like a month ago. It's, in other words, it's terribly short. I, I, I see memes, I'll get a meme from a buddy of mine, and the first thing that'll come to mind was like, yeah, that was funny 2 months ago, pal. I saw this meme already. Right? So, so again, chances are your audience has already seen that very meme, and I'll admit they're funny. They can be funny, but they lose their potency. You know what I mean? They really do. What can we use besides images? No, you want to use images. You totally want to use images. Powerful images. Memes are kind of meant to, they're not terribly serious. It's more for just a joke. Um, all right. Yeah, no memes. Don't do it. Okay, so I saw that like a couple of you guys were in Game Art, and after reading a number of your plans, I noticed that as well. I saw some pitches to Bungie, to Naughty Dog, to Blizzard, to Bethesda. So regardless, whether you're in a video game company or um, you're pitching to Pixar or Disney, you want to be an Imagineer, or you're in mobile app, regardless, whatever the case may be. Sorry, let me back up here. Yes, thank you, Nintendo. That was another one. Okay, so let me give you an example. I shall use Nintendo as an example. Let's pretend I am pitching to Nintendo. All right. Okay, I got a 14 slide presentation. My pitch is to Nintendo, and my presentation is 14 slides long. And 13 of those slides contain nothing but images from Nintendo games, Nintendo consoles, Nintendo title covers, Nintendo gameplay, right? Here's the problem with that. If that's all you use in your presentation, are you showing them anything they haven't already seen? You know what I mean? Same thing if you're pitching a Blizzard, right? You got a 16 slide presentation, and 14 of those slides have pictures of Blizzard games, Blizzard gameplay. It looks really cool to us, but you're showing them stuff that they know already. And the idea is to be original, to think outside the box, and to show them something they may not have seen before, right? Now, just to clarify, I'm okay if you use a few images from the company just to establish context, just so they know that you know who they are, right? I'm okay with a couple images from the company, but the idea is you should be thinking outside the box. That's why when you're looking for your images, be real critical, real critical, be asking yourself, is this something fresh? Is this something moving? Is this something powerful? Have they seen this before? Well, if it's Nintendo and you're showing them images of Mario, yeah, they think they probably have seen Mario before. Kind of think they know who Mario is. Know what I mean? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure everybody. Okay, so moving right along. Same thing. Same thing. If you're going for Disney or Pixar, let's pretend you're pitching at Disney, and your presentation's got nothing but images of Aladdin and Goofy and Mickey and Donald Duck, and it's got Walt Disney quotes, and that's nothing new to them. It's nothing new to them at all. They probably know everything that Walt Disney ever uttered. It's probably mandatory that they know that. So a couple of images from the company are good, but mostly you should have images that they haven't seen before. Powerful images. Cool. Same thing with mobile. If you're in the mobile app degree, you might be tempted to just have a presentation that has just nothing but, cell phones, pictures of cell phones, Apple logos, whatever, Android, old Androids, old Samsung phones. There's nothing really interesting about that. People know what that looks like. People know what a cell phone looks like. Same thing with if you're pitching to a recording studio or you're pitching a recording studio. I would say it's okay to show a couple of music related images, but again, for the most part, well, put it this way, if you're pitching to a world renowned music studio and you got images of like multi-million dollar mixing consoles and expensive microphones, that's nothing to them. They work on that stuff every day. So although that might be cool looking to us, that's nothing to them. You know what I mean? Let me know if this makes sense, please, please. Okay, cool. All right. Celebrity images, I mean, you know, they're celebrities. So automatically they are well known to your audience. You know what I'm saying? People know who Beyonce is. They know what she looks like. People know who Kanye West is. They know what he looks like. Um, Tom Cruise, celebrities. People already know. So yeah, we don't need to market them even more, right? If your audience has already seen it, chances are you don't need to include it unless there is a special story behind that. Let's say or met a celebrity, right? And you worked with them on a project. That's interesting. Yeah, definitely throw that in there. Absolutely, Jessica. Abstract images are totally fine. Anything, and again, I would emphasize, use color to your advantage. If you're an artist and you want to customize your slide, or you want to include abstract art, as long as it has the impact, the effect that you're intending, throw it in there. But if it's just because I know some abstract art can be really weird, and it's sometimes weird just for weird's sake. You know what I'm saying? Or sometimes you might have an abstract art there, but it might not really work with the text that you have. So again, if it works, if you feel like you're going to get your point across and it's going to make sense to your audience, you don't want your audience to be scratching their head, right? When you throw something in there, and they're kind of like, what is that? That's all I mean by that. But other than that, abstract images are fine. Something different is always good. Yeah, spelling. I know this is another one of Mr. Eddie's no-brainers. Spelling. And that's why I encourage everybody to have somebody else watch their presentation, because they'll be able to catch misspellings, Um, whatever degree program you're in, whether it's graphic design, computer animation, music production, audio production, creative writing, whatever degree you're going to talk about, make sure you have the degree correctly. So let me explain. So you don't want to say something like, I recently graduated from Full Sail University with an entertainment business MBA. That would be incorrect and inaccurate, and it would be misleading. It's kind of like, I don't want to sound too harsh, but it's kind of like lying on your resume. So you want to make sure that you're telling your audience the correct title of the degree, and that's all information that you'll be able to find on your degree program course page. So yeah. Just want to make sure that is clear. Yeah, no one needs to know your age. It's none of their business. And more often than not, that's the great thing about this industry. It's nobody really cares. Your age. They're generally more interested in what you can produce. They're interested in the end product, right? And I mean, if you want to reveal your age, it's up to you, but you don't have to. There's certain and there's certain things that are kind of there's kind of like unwritten rules in interviews. Like they shouldn't ask your age. First of all, they shouldn't ask if you're married. They shouldn't ask if you're married, what religion you're on, if you're what if you have kids or not. That they shouldn't ask that. If they ever do, yeah, that is a red flag, and you should run. For real, I'm not even kidding. Now, this is not to say that if you can't even talk today, I apologize. In your pitch, if you want to talk about your family, you feel comfortable talking about your family, go right ahead. If you want to talk about your kids, go right ahead. That's totally fine. But I'm saying there's certain information. If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, you don't have to. You're not obligated to. Make sense? All right, cool. Introductions. Be careful with your introductions. This is like your first handshake with someone. Has anybody ever had the conversation, that the handshake conversation with you? You probably heard it or read about it, how it's like it's your first impression. Like when you first meet someone, your handshake can say so much about you. Like if you first meet someone and they have kind of like a really, really weak handshake, then, that's not a good sign and blah, blah, blah. And if you meet someone and they crush your hand, that's not a good sign either. Well, the introduction for your presentation is very similar. Very similar. It sets the pace, it sets the tone. So you want to be critical about how you started. So a brief background, a little bio about yourself, that's enough. Key phrase, brief, brief, brief. You don't want to you know, the whole. I remember when I got my first console and then spend all presentation talking about all of the consoles that you've ever owned in your life, when guess what? You ran out of time and you forgot to talk about your specific qualifications, where you graduated from, what software you're proficient in, what you can do, and so on. But hey, at least you talked about all the consoles you owned. That kind of information is not really going to help you. Sorry. That's why you can talk about it briefly, but what you want to do is we want to get to the heart of the speech, right? Yeah, is it really how you want to start your presentation, by telling us your first, second, third, fourth, fifth game you ever played, right? Now, sometimes there's a really unique story behind this. Sometimes the first time we ever played a game is really special and it's really unique. I've heard instances where the first time they played a certain game, the student was having a really, really rough time. They were going through a really dark time, and it kind of pulled them out of the gutter and kind of essentially saved their life. That's an interesting story, especially if you're pitching to that company that, they like to hear that stuff. It's interesting. It's unique. But if all you're talking about is I remember when I first played Sonic the Hedgehog, and then I played Zelda, and then I played Halo, and then I played, okay, where are we going with this? Anyhow, you get the point. So yeah, it's about the journey. What kind of journey are you taking your audience on? So be careful with those mundane details, right? Not everything has to be so chronological, and mundane. I'll give you an example here. I'll just read from the slides. Well, first I wanted to be a doctor, but that didn't work out. Then I wanted to be a scientist, and nope, that didn't work out either. Then I got a job as a bartender, but I got bored with that. But then I discovered video games. You know what I'm saying? When you read that, so put yourself in the role of an interviewer, and you hear the candidate talking about that. What's your first impression of that? Most of the time, the first impression, I did. Yeah, it does sound a lot like, but then. It sounds very non-committal, right? It sounds very indecisive, kind of like they can't make their mind up. Yes, Tiffany, that's a good way of putting it. They get bored easily, right? And this is not bad per se, but is it information you want to include in a pitch? Not really, right? This could be true. Maybe you went through a ton of stuff. Maybe you tried out a ton of different things. But is it stuff you want to talk about in an interview, in a pitch? Not really. Not really. Unless there's a really, really interesting story behind it that you think is going to captivate your audience. If your story is unique, and you ask yourself, okay, yeah, I think my audience is going to remember this, right? Then yeah, definitely leave it in there. Okay, it boils down to that. It boils down to you only have 3 to 4 minutes. I know it's not a lot of time. It really isn't. So that's why I really push leaving out those mundane details. Every place you lived, every school you attended. First, I was born here, then I moved to this elementary school, then I went to this middle school, then I changed middle schools here, then I went to high school here. Not terribly important. Not terribly important. Yeah, okay. I already said that. And no history lessons. For example, don't tell Bungie how far video game graphics have come. Or don't talk to Nintendo about how of their of where their company has been. Don't talk to them about the first Zelda that came out, and then the next Zelda that came out, and then the next Zelda that came out. They kind of know that stuff already. A lot of these games, sorry, a lot of these companies, they kind of wrote the book on video games. You know what I mean? They kind of they started video games. They know their history. They know the history of video games. So telling them stuff like that, telling them stuff they already know, it's a eye rolling moment, if you will. Yeah, or if you're pitching the Def Jam, and you're going to start talking about the history of rap, they kind of know about rap, right? They kind of know about hip hop. I don't know. I'm guessing. um, 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 um. Anywho, it's about knowing your audience. Know your audience. Know what they know as well. Don't tell them stuff they already know. Okay. Now, I went over this earlier as far as when you talk about Full Sail. First of all, you have to talk about Full Sail from the perspective that you've already graduated. But again, make sure the handful of courses that you talk about, make sure that they're industry specific. Make sure that they're the kind of courses this interviewer is going to want to hear about them. Um, 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 um. um For the most part, Jessica, pretty much stick to our outline from last week. Yeah, I would say yes. And of course, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, something may have changed from last week's plan, and that's okay. You know, that is totally fine. You may have discovered something else, but yeah, for the most part, you want to stick to your outline from last week. Yeah. All right. Okay. Anybody interested in background music? Background music for their presentation. Oh, wow. A couple of you. Okay. Now, this is really, really important. Being a film composer, I take this very serious. For reals, I do. So, background music, I tend to recommend, let's pretend that you got your presentation, right? You played it back. You got really good delivery. You sound great. But there's something lacking. There's something lacking, even though there's a good flow, even though your content is solid. There's something it needs. Well, background music could be just the thing. What I recommend is only use background music to give a subtle, keyword subtle push to your presentation. It should never be so overpowering that it kind of takes center stage of your presentation. Yeah. Yeah. So a warning, background music can actually destroy your presentation. It can do the adverse effect. So choose it wisely, please. So first and foremost, your voice should be significantly louder than the music. Your voice. That's what they came to hear, right? They want to know they want to hear your voice. They want to hear your message. So that is the first thing. So it's got to be significantly louder than the music. Okay, so avoid popular music with lyrics, prominent bass lines, screeching guitars. Hey, I love metal. I love hip hop. I love classical music. I love film music. I love all kinds of music. I'm not even kidding. However, there is some music that you just don't put in your presentation. Popular music, what it does is, all right, let me give you an example. I might have shared this example with you before. Anyway, so I had a student in the past. He had a really great presentation, really great delivery, really great images. Their background music, they chose the Eminem song "Lose Yourself." Now, I'm a big fan of Eminem. I love his music. I love that song. It's got a great energy. However, during the presentation, it kind of tried to the song itself seemed like it was trying to steal the show. It was like a competition between the student presenter's voice and Eminem's voice. So it was kind of like very hard to hear the student's voice. You don't want that to happen. You do not want that to happen. So that's why I would recommend not using popular music. The first thing your audience is going to do is they're going to recognize that, and they're going to subconsciously listen to that over your voice, right? Good question. Royalty-free music. I'm almost to that point. Give me 1 second. And should we credit any music on the same slide as the image credits? Exactly. Yeah. Any kind of music that you use, royalty-free music, anything you want to include it on the sources page. Very, very, very important. Well, here's the thing about classical music. A lot of people, when they think of classical music, they think, hey, this is something soft. This is something that's going to be understated. I think I'll use this for my presentation. Or, hey, this is a really good video game music. I remember when they played this in whatever, I don't know, Breath of the Wild. I think it'll work well in my presentation. Here's the thing. Video game music is a lot like film music. It's very dynamic. So one moment, and this is true of classical music too. One moment, the composition might be really mellow, really soft, very beautiful. The next moment, a minute later, it could be pounding with timpanis, shrieking violins and all that kind of crazy stuff. And before you know it, it's drowning out your voice. So whatever music you're going to use, I simply say listen to it from beginning to end. Make sure it's pretty steady and make sure it doesn't drown your voice out. Know what I'm saying? All right. Okay. Yeah, short loops. Avoid those short loops. And here's why. Let's say you found a really cool loop, little music loop, right? And it's 40 seconds long, right? But your presentation is 3 minutes long. What's going to happen? Your audience is going to hear that loop play again a few times, and it's going to draw attention to itself. It's going to become a distraction. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that drum fill. Oh yeah, I remember that melody, right? You don't want that to happen. So whatever loop you use, make sure it's kind of the same length as your presentation. Cool? Yeah. Okay. Now, unless it's seamless, absolutely. Yeah. If the instrumentation is one where it's not distracting at all, you might be able to get away with the short loop. But some loops, the instrumentation, they have like pianos and they have a very pronounced melody or guitar pattern. In that case, yeah, it might be distracting. All right, check this out. WeStar Music. Anybody ever used this before? WeStar Music? WeStar is awesome. So it's free to all Full Sail students. And the way to access WeStar Music is you go to FS Connect, go to the Full Sail library. Once you click on the library, look for Research Database. Now, what is WeStar Music? So WeStar Music has all kinds of royalty-free music. They got songs, they got loops, they got, hey, if you're in video game design and you need sound effects for rain or, wind or, I don't know, gunshots, dogs barking, all kinds of sound effects like that, WeStar Music has that. It's awesome. It is totally awesome. You should definitely check it out. It's pretty big. So yeah. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to explore it. So it comes in pretty handy, folks. Pretty handy. WeStar Music. So yeah, just be careful with the background music that you use. First and foremost is your voice in it. Your voice has got to be significantly louder than the music, whatever it is. All right. So yeah, this presentation, I just want to emphasize the importance of showing and not just telling. So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, avoid those generic resume catchphrases. Yeah. I know the one. I know you guys have heard of these. They're They're infamous. I'm creative is a big one. You want to be careful with this, with saying you're creative, because the moment you say you are creative, your audience is going to demand that your presentation be creative, right? If you say you're creative and you don't have very many images or very many slides at all, yeah, it's going to be a little bit ironic. Yes, I'm the best, hire me. That's another one. Good one, Taylor. I'm a hard worker. Ooh, that's a good one. Resume cliches. This is one of those things that's just so incredibly overused in resumes, in cover letters. So here's my point. Instead of saying I'm creative, I'm a hard worker, I'm a team player, hire me, instead of saying you're a team player, what you can do instead, what you should do instead is share a story, a specific story where you demonstrated that quality. Or instead of saying I'm a hard worker, share a story with your audience where you displayed that quality of being a hard worker. I don't know. Maybe you pulled the team together in your last job, and you kind of like helped save the day from some major company issue. That will go much farther. Your audience is going to remember your story more so than a resume cliche like this. You know what I mean? I need money for food. Brilliant. That's a given. Yeah. We all need money for food. I want. Yes. Avoid saying I want. Yeah. Okay. And don't forget about your star moment. Your star moment, something they will always remember. Now, this can be a couple of things. Your star moment can be the images that you choose, the powerful images that you choose. That can be enough. Maybe that could be enough. Maybe not. That's where you have to be really careful. That's why you want your images to be so powerful that your audiences are going to remember them. Maybe your star moment is going to be a powerful quote that you share with your audience, something just so moving that it inspires your audience, right? Or maybe your star moment will be a very personal story that you share with your audience. Yeah, the kind of story that they don't soon forget. Sorry. Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. Your outline is your outline. If you had a story in your outline, great. But your outline was mainly to kind of like, hey, start thinking about the story that you want to share. You know, that's all it was. Like last week when we talked about the 2.4 story, and when we talked about the your script, your beginning, middle, and end, I didn't so much expect you guys to have your story perfectly ironed out, but I wanted you to kind of think about it, like to kind of think about, hey, I might go in this direction. You know what I mean? Alrighty. 1 second, folks. Okay, I'm back. Alrighty, so 1 second. Let me just kind of scroll back here. Try not to expose the background there. Okay, so a couple of reminders. Don't forget about these. Yes, YouTubeLyn.com. Yes, yes. You definitely want to add a lot more detail. That is correct. So just to kind of go back real quick, the presentation program, you have to use a presentation program for this assignment. Something like Keynote, something like PowerPoint, Adobe Spark, something where you can include audio and visual. And by visual, I just mean, some pictures. You don't want to turn in your assignment on a Word document, right? All right. The music website was called WeStar, and it's found. And don't forget, I record this session, so yeah, you'll be able to check it out. This whole thing will be recorded, and you'll be able to access it on the 3.1 activity boards. But it's called WeStar Music. Sorry, here it is. And the way to access it for free, you'll have to go click into the library. Okay. And of course, a couple of reminders. Don't forget about this stuff. Don't like whatever program you use, you want to review it. Make sure it doesn't cost anything, any fees at all. Make sure it does what you need it to do, right? A short video of our work. What about including a short video of our work? That's okay, but you don't want it to eat up too much time from your presentation. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be talking for 1 minute and then have the rest of the presentation be the video. Does that make sense? The bulk of your presentation should be you talking about the pitch, the actual pitch. Also, doesn't work with your current device. Talked about that, the 2.3 and 2.4s. Why not have the video but comment on it? You're doing the work. That's a possibility. You could also include a link to the video if you want to do that. Sorry, I'm just kind of like reviewing what we covered in the beginning. All right, so just to kind of, as a reminder, if you didn't already, make sure you check out those 2 student sample presentations. Really, really important. I think after looking at those, you'll have a pretty good idea of kind of how to attack this assignment, some ways of narrating your pitch, some kind that the images, the level, the quality images that they used. Those are really, really good examples. All right. And that's about it, folks. Oh, when is this assignment due, everyone? When is the first draft due? Exactly, Sunday. Correct. All right. That is all, folks. We are finished with today's session. Thank you so much for your patience. I know I talked your ear off and I apologize, but I wanted to make sure you had the information. Get started. You definitely want to get started and give yourself plenty of time to work on this. If you have any questions at all, just email me at etapia@fullsail.com. All right, everyone. Take care. Have a good one.